Good afternoon and welcome to Facebook Live with the Kansas City Star's Editorial Board. I'm Toriano Porter. I'm here with my esteemed colleague Michael Ryan. We have two special guests today that I want to introduce you to from the Kansas City Police Department. We'll start first with Officer Doa El Ascar and Sergeant Jake Bakina. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. Now, we were talking off camera here about a little bit about trauma in the police department and the psychological things you guys go through. And I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the job you do and some of the things you go through. I'll start with you, Officer Doa. Can you talk to us about the peer support you guys have in the police department when it comes to dealing with trauma and the psychology of policing?
Absolutely. So it is a new program that we have that we have recently started, the peer support program. And like we were talking about before we started, when people, when you observe your peer, maybe having an off day, for example, or you see because you work with them every day that something is just not right, or maybe they're down or something like that, and you notice those subtle little nuances that you would know, and you just pull them aside and you say, hey, is everything okay? It just starts with a basic, is everything okay? And then you hold whatever they want to share with you personally or from anything they're experiencing with their day-to-day activities in the field or wherever they may work. They share with you in confidence, and then you help get them to resources. It's just kind of a safe place for peers to talk to each other, and it's a one-on-one, so you don't worry about a supervisor or a commander or something coming to you. It's peers.
Okay.
So.
And what's the importance of that, Sergeant?
Yeah, so, I've been in this business 16 and a half years now. And when I came out in the field, the idea of struggling with an incident or really, experiencing what we now know is called post-traumatic stress. Experiencing those things, the idea of talking about that out in the open in the workplace was absolutely non-existent at that time. The climate, the culture was just suck it up, move on to the next thing. You'll feel better tomorrow. It's just something everybody deals with. And we know now through so much research, we've learned so much in the last few years, that it doesn't just go away. That people experiencing others' trauma and experiencing things that human beings aren't designed to process, that creates a toll. And you can't help but have that experience. I liken it to water in a bucket. We carry a bucket around for a long time with water in it, and we get used to the weight. If we're always adding water to that bucket, a drop at a time, we don't realize how much weight there is. And experiencing others' trauma, secondary trauma, while it's not our own physical trauma, we are going through it with those people. We are going through death, serious injury, traumatic events, and those are all drops of water in that bucket. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something that we should hide or pretend doesn't exist. There's so many things out there we can do proactively to make us more resilient, to make us the best versions of ourselves, so we can go out there in the community every day and serve the community as best as we can. There are mindfulness exercises. There's yoga. We have all of these things in place. We have classes. We have weekly, bi-weekly programs for yoga for first responders where people can go and recharge. They can have their own personal reset. And so the police officer that you get when you call 911 is the best version of themselves, and they're best equipped to serve you, the citizens of our community.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, yeah, I was just going to ask, could you give some examples of some of the traumatic things that officers are exposed to, and what kinds of treatment are available beyond the peer support?
I'll throw a couple of things out there, that we see on day-to-day that you might not think about. We experience people that have had significant car crashes, significant injuries in a car crash. We see them for a few minutes at a scene or for a couple hours. If they survive that crash, we experience that. But we're also dealing with them processing a significant injury that they have received. And so while it's not our injury, we're dealing with their processing of it. Happens all the time at the scene of a shooting or another serious injury where someone has injured someone else. Somebody causing great bodily harm or life-threatening injury to another human being we're not wired for that. Like, the wiring isn't right when somebody tries to kill another person. And so experiencing someone who has had that happen to them, or someone who has committed that act, those are not natural things. And so all of those are the types of things that weigh on people, and it's different for everybody, and you don't know how it's going to be. You don't know how you're going to react to it until you get in that situation.
And treatment?
As far as treatment, the peer support program does not offer treatment in and of itself. There are resources out there. There are medical interventions, there are resources, and every situation is different. Our department, for the longest time, has had an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, provided by our insurance company, and that funnels us to resources for psychiatric, psychological care if requested. And sometimes it's as simple as maybe that's the best answer for someone, and it may be just a matter of having a conversation, and maybe one of our peer support volunteers would kind of urge you in that direction, whereas maybe you wouldn't have thought to do that before. And just hearing that from somebody else, like, hey, this is okay, what you're feeling is natural, and it's something that happens, just that maybe might be the difference.
Sarge, we talked a bit about, officers that are involved in shootings and the toll that it takes on the officers, and they have to make that split-second decision to save and preserve a life. Can you talk about the aftermath of something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Officer-involved shootings are something that no one gets into this job with a desire to do. We are given certain tools to intervene. We are constitutionally given the right to use force to preserve the peace and protect other people, including ourselves. So that's a huge weight in and of itself. And taking that on and putting that in your backpack and putting that on every day and carrying that is a big weight. And so when a situation dictates where someone has to use force to bring a situation under control or to safely de-escalate a situation, if that force is deadly, that has traumatic effects on that officer, across the board. The possibilities are endless on what that on what those effects could be. I've heard statistics as high as 50% nationwide of officers involved in an officer-involved shooting do not return to work for psychological reasons.
Wow.
They do not return to work. And so that, to me, in and of itself, says that this is a significant thing that needs to be taken very seriously. And I can assure you that throughout our training process in the training academy and the updated in-service training that we get yearly from our firing range staff and our academy staff, that decision is taken so seriously. And the circumstances where a decision like that might come about, it is at the forefront of the training we receive on a yearly basis as well as introductory. Because we take somebody from a civilian lifestyle where they get up every morning and they go to and from work, to and from school, and they don't have to think about things in terms of what will I do, how will I react if someone's life is in danger right in front of me all of a sudden. And we have to teach those skills. We have to teach that reaction and that ability. And when someone uses that there is always, now more than ever, there is always that second guessing, that comes up. We are in a time in our career now, in our this generation of law enforcement has come through training and grown up, so to speak, with the understanding that literally everyone has a TV camera in their pocket.
Right.
And that is valuable information, and it's valuable to the community because it's a tool of accountability. We don't want to work with someone who dishonors the badge and does this job in a dishonorable way. And so when something like that comes up, no one wants to be part of that dishonoring of our profession. So people that carry a TV camera in their pocket through their cell phone, it is a good thing from an accountability perspective.
Okay. And speaking of accountability, your department is one of the largest ones without body cams. Where are we at in that process?
So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we went through a process of a bid process, basically. We put out a request for bids.
Bids?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, a request for bids, a request for proposal, I believe is what they call it. We received several back. There was a committee that was assigned to review those proposals and then select a vendor. So that was the next step, was to select a vendor. We had selected a vendor, still have selected a vendor, And the situation then becomes identifying a funding source.
Okay.
You know, our budget is set by state statute. It's one of the nuances of us being controlled by Board of Police Commissioners assigned by the governor. We are a state-controlled police agency, which is probably a different Facebook Live altogether.
Definitely.
That's definitely 20 minutes in and of itself.
Yep.
But because of that, our budget is set by state statute. It's provided by the city. The city provides funding above and beyond what state statute mandates in almost every cycle of that budget that I know of since I've been around. They go above and beyond what they have to according to state statute. But there is not a funding source right now that is identified that provides for us to make that initial purchase of body cams. We did make a purchase, I believe 6 or 8 months ago, of new dash cam.
Okay.
And that new dash cam is 100% compatible with the vendor. It's the same vendor. And we had to replace our aging dash cam system. So that new dash cam is in the process of being implemented right now into patrol cars as we speak through our radio maintenance office. And that new dash cam is 100% compatible with the body cam from the vendor that we've identified. So literally it's a matter of identifying the funding.
Well, you probably know how I feel about officer-involved shootings, having gone through shoot or don't shoot training through your department. So I'm naturally empathetic. But I've recently been doing some reporting and writing on the fact that officer-involved shootings in Kansas, the investigative materials are not availed to the survivors of the victims if there's a fatality, even if there's no charges against the officer. What is this case in Missouri, and why shouldn't they be available to everybody?
So I don't want to speak about Kansas because I don't know their public records law. In the state of Missouri, I can tell you an officer-involved shooting has an investigative case file, just like any other aggravated assault, shooting, or homicide. So, and the things that go into that are super comprehensive, as you might imagine. Any video evidence would be part of that investigative case file. Now, fast forward to a hypothetical situation. Once that case is decided by the prosecutor or by grand jury to not result in charges. So prosecutor elects not to file charges or a grand jury does not submit an indictment. All of that investigative case file is considered open record according to Missouri public records law.
Wow.
Yes.
Officer, and I wanted to ask you, what's the importance of transparency within the police department as it relates to the public?
Well, it's very important because it builds trust. So the more transparent you are, the better. You got to be able to approach us and ask questions and know that you're going to get a response, not I'm not going to answer that, or I don't feel comfortable commenting on that. No, sometimes you just have to understand where the person's coming from, what their question is, and then also to understand where we're coming from and what our process is and why, what our policies or procedures are, why we do things the way we do. So I feel like it is very important to be transparent.
Right. Now, you guys are the face of the Kansas City Police Department as it relates to the media. And oftentimes you guys are on the scene, you're talking to the cameras. Does that take a toll on you, being on those scenes? Because most of the time there's homicides or something major happening.
Yes. Well, I will say that before being in the media unit, while on patrol, because I did a little over 7 years as a patrol officer, so I was responding to those scenes as a patrol officer. So responding as a public information officer, I'm still responding to the scenes, but in a different capacity. And I hold that with great responsibility and honor because I am speaking on behalf of the department and relaying the information to the public. So when you speak of the transparency, I'm giving the public the information that I can release at that time and also to media. And then the follow-up and still being able to answer those questions, it's just in a different capacity. Does it take a toll? I think, everyone's job takes a toll on them, which is why it's so important to take care of yourself and have the wellness and the balance that we all should have, not just police officers.
Right, and you guys have a lot of distractions and critics, which is normal and natural.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest misconception about the Kansas City Police Department that you would like to straighten out?
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good question. That's a tall one. I think that there's a segment of the population that we experience and experiences us that thinks that we don't care. I think that I feel that from time to time. And if there was just one thing, if I could just put on like a business card on like one side of it, and no matter what, if I gave that to people, they'd believe what was written on there. It would say, "We care." That's what it would say. And everybody has an off day, and it may feel like in some situation that we're not 100% present or that we don't care, but I can promise you, I've known thousands of people that have gotten into this job. Nobody gets into this job and doesn't care to some degree, because you can't do it without caring.
We just had a mass shooting Sunday night outside of a bar, and so I'm wondering a couple of things. Number one, what, if anything, should be done about the bar, because there's been a number of police incidents there that they've had to respond to. And the second thing is just an overall question: what can be done to reduce the record number of homicides we're seeing?
Yeah, so with regard to that location in particular, one of our big partner organizations is a city entity called Regulated Industries.
Yes.
And they regulate every entity or every establishment in the city that sells or provides alcohol. And there are very strict laws and regulations that they have to go through in order to maintain their license and their ability to continue to operate in that capacity. And there are a lot of provisions that are under that liquor law umbrella that those businesses have to follow. And we have a vice unit that's charged with investigating types of violations like that, and they work hand in hand. And with regard to this incident, I can assure you that based on the events of Sunday night and previous events that had been documented there, it was the second shooting incident that had happened within the period of about a week. Based on those are the types of things Regulated Industries wants to make sure that if there is an establishment that is leading to violent crime, that they make the necessary changes that are suggested or required, or that establishment won't exist much longer. There's a lot of provisions where they can do that. We don't have necessarily the right to tell a business how they're going to operate, but we can advise a city entity and work in concert with them to ensure that a business operates under the umbrella of their licensing and follow those rules. Are there for a reason, and it's so that establishments aren't able to continue where violent crime and other public nuisance is allowed to continue.
Okay.
Now, the mayor wants to reduce the homicide rate. How's he going to do it?
He absolutely does. I believe I've heard him say his goal is to have homicides under 100. Our goal is to have homicide 0, and we work towards that every day. Some might say that's unrealistic, but in any society where involving human beings, people are going to argue. They're going to have disagreements. Part of the solution is getting people to solve those disagreements the way that human beings are designed to, with words and discussion, not with tools and instruments of violence, particularly with guns. I've heard a stat, and I believe it's true, there's more guns in this country than there are people, which tells me that there's a lot of guns readily available out there for people to make bad decisions with.
Right.
People that shouldn't have guns should not have them. And the more police we can have that are investigating that and taking those guns from people and preventing people from having guns that are prohibited or not supposed to have those guns based on convictions or domestic violence issues or things like that within the state law, that is a solution. That is definitely a solution, and we're on board with that solution.
But I was going to add to that, that it's a partnership, right? So it takes everybody in the community. It's not just the police. It's not just the mayor. It's not just the citizens. It's everybody. So what can we do as a team to reduce the homicide rate? It's our city. All of us live in this city.
Right. Do you think the Missouri state law that allows anyone over the age of 18 to legally carry without training or a background check or license, do you think that hurts Kansas City as far as homicide rate?
I think that the numbers alone would say that that is probably an accurate statement. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Of the 148 homicides we had last year, it was way over 130 involved a firearm.
So some of my friends in Georgia, where I lived for a number of years, are in the process of putting together an inpatient treatment facility for first responders. And I'm wondering if you've ever heard of such a thing and what do you think of it?
I haven't heard of that directly for first responders. There are a few programs out there that are modeled after PTSD type programs for military veterans that have responded back home. I know there's a couple programs out there that will accept EMS first responders as well alongside of military personnel, but I have not heard of something specifically for first responders only here. So that is interesting. I'll get the name of that and I'll link that up with the people that I know that are running programs here.
But something unique you guys are going to do here coming up. You're going to offer a trauma, I guess, opportunity to discuss trauma with media members.
Yes,
is that correct?
And you're going to be there. That's correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. We're really proud of this, and we were actually kind of finalizing some things today.
Okay.
And there's actually I got an exciting surprise for you on
Yes.
Friday.
Okay.
I won't reveal it here, though.
Not traumatic.
It's not traumatic.
Not
no,
traumatic.
it's exciting.
No,
It is exciting.
It's good.
We have partnered with, and I won't go too much into detail. We've partnered with a woman named Kim, and she runs a program called Pause First Meditation.
Okay.
Okay. She has a website and she has the whole program, and I won't go into where that was all born out of. But basically, she provides a tool set, and I have lost track of the amount of times that she's provided the course to our academy, but it's into the dozens. She offers an elective 4-hour class that gives some basic techniques that when people, basically the best way I can explain it to you, when people become swamped with emotion and their survival brain overrides their rational thinking brain. When that happens in people, there are some certain things you can do to mitigate those circumstances. There's things you can do before you go into a situation where you know that you're going to have a fear response, a survival response, to set yourself up to win. It involves really simple things. Breathing, one of the biggest things we can do, we can all breathe better.
Right.
Breathing is the biggest thing. And just some simple breathing techniques to regulate heart rate, heart rhythm, all of those things. She provides those, a little bit of context behind it and what it does. It's not real sciencey, but what we have known and what we have been struck with since we've been in this business is that we are blessed as first responders that people recognize that we experience traumatic events and that we need to have renewal and recuperative efforts and practices. What we were struck with was the sense that members of the media, in that sense, are first responders too. You guys are interviewing people the day after they've lost a loved one,
Right.
the day after they've experienced a violent crime against them. You guys are going to the scene where someone didn't survive a violent crime, and you see them down the street, laying there under a blanket, behind crime scene tape, whatever it might be. Again, with that bucket analogy, you don't know it either, but you're carrying a bucket too. And there's drops going in that bucket. And I believe that our interaction with the media is a partnership. Here in Kansas City, I believe we have certain responsibilities. We're the largest police department in 6 states. We're the largest city in this metropolitan area of over 2 million people. We have certain responsibilities to provide information and be transparent with the media and to have that partnership. We don't get to go hide behind a rock and just tell you guys no comment, we'll talk about it later. We don't get to do that. Not that we would want to anyway, but we don't get to do that. You guys deserve better. The citizens of our city deserve better than that. And so with that partnership, we want to help you guys and share with you guys the things that we have found to be helpful to get through these traumatic events that we're both standing out there talking about.
Right.
And I believe, Kim Colgrove is her name, and I believe that her program is a very simple, very portable tool that you can just put in your pocket. You don't need a big backpack. You can have it in your pocket like your cell phone, and you can have it always with you. And she graciously agreed to donate her time on Friday, and there's going to be a handful of media members, both photographers, writers, anchors, reporters, all different types of media members that are going to be there on Friday. And it's the first of what I hope to be many.
Right.
Because when you guys feel safe and you feel balanced and you guys are using the thinking rational part of your brain, then it helps us, just like when we are doing that, it helps you.
Right. I remember being on the breaking news desk a couple of years ago, and someone asked me, how do I do it? How do I cover these homicides and violent, crimes and wrecks that leave people dead? And I had no answer.
Right.
I just do my job. And to be able to like compartmentalize that, it helps me get through. It's the survival instincts, but we all need a release.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't dealing with the media kind of traumatic? I mean, aren't we kind of whiny little babies who want everything now?
Can I say no comment? No.
Yeah. Don't you go home and say, man, you won't believe what happened today.
Right.
Well, I was actually talking to somebody about this today. When there's a why behind what you do, if it on the surface seems challenging, frustrating, draining, as long as you know the bigger picture, the why behind it, then it's energizing, and it kind of it recharges you. And like I'd mentioned before, we believe we owe the citizens of Kansas City and the metro area a certain transparency as the largest organization. We owe you guys that transparency, and I want everybody that puts this uniform on to go out there and be as safe as they possibly can. And if people have a positive view of us, they trust us, and they realize that we're doing the best we can and we got this, and what we're doing kind of makes sense. If I can project that image, then the next time an officer is driving down the street of someone, then maybe if something goes bad on that block, worst case scenario, maybe they'll call 911 for somebody to come help that officer when before they wouldn't, even if it's just that simple.
Outstanding. We're just about out of time here this afternoon. This has been a great conversation. Really thank you guys for taking the time to join us. I want to send a special thank you to Officer Dora L. Escar and Sergeant Jake McKenna of the Kansas City Police Department.
Thank you.
For Michael Ryan, I'm Toriano Porter. You guys enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.